Joined now by Labour's Shadow Justice Secretary Steve Reid. Hi, it's good
Morning.
to see you. Thanks for joining us. Which of those two candidates is Labour would you most like to face?
Well, frankly, it doesn't make very much difference because after all of the ruckus that we've seen in the House of Commons, the Tories fighting each other like rats in a sack over the last few weeks, we've ended up with the two continuity candidates. Both of them very senior lieutenants in Boris Johnson's government. Both of them voted and supported every one of the 15 tax hikes that were delivered under Boris Johnson. Both of them equally responsible for the high-tax, low-growth economy that the Conservatives have delivered. So it's a bit like an episode of Doctor Who, where he's going to regenerate into a new character. We just don't know yet whether Boris Johnson is going to come back reincarnated as Rishi or Liz, but they're both responsible for every single economic error that has been made under the Johnson government.
And both in power, and you're not.
Absolutely, that's right. Well, the country is crying out for a fresh start right now. We know that.
You're not going to
the cost of living crisis is really hurting people hard. If we really want a fresh start, then we need a general election, and the choice should go over to the people of this country, not just a few thousand members of the Conservative Party.
Your colleagues sit here day after day, week after week, saying that. It's not going to happen.
Well, we don't know, do we? We don't know.
We do. I think we know that they're not. They know that they're absolutely going to be struggling over the next 6 months with the cost of living crisis, the situation in Ukraine, etc., etc. The last thing they want is a general election because they'll lose.
Well, possibly. We'll see. There has to be one within 2 years. But they're both going around saying now that we need a fresh start. Well, goodness me, they've been in power for 12 years. These two have been two of the most senior figures in the government that has created the devastation that they're now trying to claim they're against. They voted for all of those tax hikes. They were coming on your show and other shows, covering up for Boris Johnson's lies and law-breaking and the mockery he made of the sacrifices of the British people during the lockdown. They can't just launder their reputations. They were all complicit every single step of the way. So the idea that they can represent any kind of a fresh start, it's for the birds.
The reason I was asking about which one you would prefer to see across the dispatch box is because in the polls that we are looking at, Liz Truss does not do as well as Rishi Sunak when it comes to being able to stand up to Labour. Well,
you know, Labour is prepared to take on whoever the Conservatives put up as leader. Of course we would, because that's what happens in a general election. But if either of these two characters think that they can whitewash their records and pretend that they had nothing to do with the economic mismanagement that's created this Conservative cost of living crisis, then it won't wash, because they have defended it and voted for it every single step of the way. And whichever of them is elected, whenever the general election comes, we will take them on the record that they are part of. And my belief is the country desperately needs a fresh start now. The cost of living crisis is hurting immensely. The reason that we've got a high tax economy right now is because we have a low growth economy, because the Conservatives choked off growth 12 years ago when they first come in, and that has been a pattern that we've seen all the way through. If they had grown the economy at the same rate that the last Labour government did, then right now there would be £35 billion more money in the exchequer to spend on public services without going to the public for a single penny more in tax. The ultimate cause of their failure is they have not grown the economy.
Why didn't you applaud Boris Johnson's last PMQs yesterday?
Well, it was absolute hypocrisy that we were treated to there. He did not apologise for a single one of the mistakes that he's made. We've had prime ministers in this country.
You've seen him off. I mean, he's gone.
We've had prime ministers in this country for 300 years. He is the first prime minister to have to be dragged out of office because he was unfit for the office that he holds. And we haven't heard a single word of apology for all of the mistakes that got him here. And all of those Conservative MPs who, in the end, because they thought it was in their own personal self-interests to knife him in the back, having done that, then stood up and applauded it. And I thought it was rank hypocrisy, to be honest.
Well, a lot of Conservative MPs would not have particularly cared for Tony Blair for all sorts of reasons that we don't need to go into here, but they still applauded when he left.
You can't applaud somebody who has brought the whole of politics into disrepute. You know, the lies that we had all the way through the lockdown, covering up Partygate, the attempt to change the rules over Owen Paterson's law-breaking lobbying in order to cover up for what he'd done, the promotion of a man that he knew at the time was a sex pest to deputy chief whip.
We know all
Why
of
would
this.
you applaud a man that had done all of that?
This, but, you know, you've seen him off. He's done for all of those reasons, and you kept his feet to the flames, and he's gone. Would it not have just been good grace to stand up and applaud?
I think Boris Johnson has disrespected the people of this country and the office that he holds, and he does not deserve credit for having brought the whole of politics into disrepute. It's a quite different thing to disagree with somebody but respect what they've done. I'm afraid Boris Johnson threw that respect away when he himself disrespected the British people by partying his way through lockdown, then lying about it afterwards. I'm just explaining, Kay, why...
Theresa May, what do you think about her not standing up?
Well, that's a matter for her, you know.
She did eventually, but she certainly didn't applaud.
I haven't spoken to Theresa May for a very long time. I can account for myself, but not for her. But Boris Johnson brought politics into disrepute by his behaviour. He does not deserve to be applauded. He needed to leave office much sooner than he did. The Conservative MPs, including Liz and Rishi, propped him up until they thought it was in their own self-interest, not the country's interest, to get rid of him.
It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us on the programme. Thank you.